Good afternoon, and welcome to Storytellers Campfire. We are on international radio tour, and many of you know our authors who have series of books have been reappearing back on the program, sharing us their trilogy, such as today. Today, we are going to be focusing on the third book in the Rector ST Series, Blind Trust, written by John Nuckel. But we have quite a few things that we're doing on the program today, so I'll give everyone kind of a brief idea of what we're going to see. We're going to first have an interview with John do a little recap on the VIG, and then we'll do a short recap on Grit, which is book 2 of the series, and then give everyone a preview of Blind Trust. We're also going to have Carol P. Roman and Michael Philip Cash, who will be sharing their thoughts and opinions on the videos for the Rector ST Series. And then Charlie Checkers will be here with us as well, and she'll be doing some book reviews. So a lot of good things on the program, and we're looking forward to sharing all of this with everyone. So we will take a brief commercial break, and then we will be right back for the preview for Blind Trust.
International Radio Tour's broadcasting program is designed to assist artists, writers, producers, musicians, published authors, and organizations promoting their work throughout the world. To learn more, visit online at internationalradiotours.org.
Welcome back to International Radio Tours in Progress. This is your host, Lady Selah Suchuris, and today we have with us Charlie Checkers, who is joining us for the book review part of the program, and we also have John Nuckel. Welcome back to the Global Campfire.
Hello.
Thank you. Hi.
It's great to have you here again, John. It's always nice to have you on the program sharing your very creative thoughts and ideas of your writing process.
Well, it's always nice to be here.
Oh, good. Thank you. And Charlie, nice to have you back again at the campfire. It's been a while since we've worked together.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to many more this winter at a warm campfire.
Excellent. So as we mentioned here, we're going to do a recap of the VIG and Grit. But before that, John, I had a little comment I wanted to make. I know recently you have been experiencing the empty nester. So I wanted you to share a couple of comments on how that's going for you.
Well, I guess honest couples would say that it really is pretty great. Although I miss my children desperately. I have one daughter who is studying theater in Ireland, who you'll hear from today, and another one is at USC, actually. So they're doing great, so why shouldn't I do great? And despite missing them very much, I actually signed up to do a Spartan race. And this is one of those races where, you run through the woods and climb over walls and people, I guess, shout at you as you climb underneath ropes and everything. But, I set it up as a goal for myself I want to stay active, and I want to keep doing things. So that's one thing I'm doing, and I'm writing. So I have new things coming up.
So, yeah, and you're right. I have to agree with that. When children move out, you put positive and productive things on your schedule, and you keep going forward, and you have a lot to look forward to. You have a lot going on, so that's nice to hear.
Yeah.
Very good. So let's go ahead and we know that the VIG was the Big Marble Award winner, and one of the reasons for that, it was such a compelling book. And so let's start with the VIG and give listeners a brief recap, and then we'll do a brief recap on the Grit before we get to our preview of Blind Trust.
Yeah, absolutely. And the VIG, it really is a good example. When I do speaking engagements, I speak to people and tell them to, don't give up on your daydream and keep doing that thing that you find interesting, that you enjoy doing. The VIG is one of those things. I worked on the floor of the stock exchange for many years, and where the VIG takes place, and I had this little story in my head, and it was my story. If I was driving down the road or stuck in traffic or jogging, I would think of what's next in the story. And I was encouraged to put it down on paper and actually write it. So the VIG is based on it. I say it's the beginning of the most corrupt era in the history of Wall Street. So it's right around 2000 when the automation started coming in. That really was the root of the downfall of the trading floors, was automation started coming in and the profit margins were getting thinner. The VIG was going away, put it that way. And people started doing things, and this is a story of people who sort of went to the other side and tried to find a way to keep making money, although it wasn't necessarily legal. Now, there was some real bad, illegal behavior going on, but what I found interesting was someone like Frank, who's my lead character, who, although he didn't participate in any illegal activities, he sort of went along and sort of like went along to get along kind of attitude, where he just and then he sort of took a bribe. He didn't cash the check, but he got caught up in a federal investigation that he wasn't even aware of, and all of a sudden here he goes from a guy just trying to get by to being involved with some very, very bad people. And that story is how he deals with, trying to survive this situation. But it's also a story about, I like this, although there were big events, and, the opening of the book is a major event, certainly, but I like to look at it more as character-driven than event-driven. And I find it interesting to see why people do the things that they do. A lot of the VIG and Grit are really my answer to the sort of the pulp thriller that, there's a bad guy and he does bad things, but you don't know why he does it or how he does it. And, I found that interesting to look into the background of Carla, who's the assassin, and Brogan, who's the federal agent, but he's sort of over the hill and he's losing it. So they all have these different motivations. Not all of them are honorable motivations, but they all have motivations to do the things that they do, and I think it's interesting to see the interaction between them all and how things work out,
Yes.
So that's really the essence of the VIG. And like Grit and like Blind Trust, I do have an overarching theme, and the VIG, it was stealing a little bit of money from a lot of people. I mean, and that's something that happens. Everyone can relate to that. Where if you look at your phone bill and it says .0007 cents is coming out for whatever fee. You don't even know what it is. These people, credit card companies, it's happened in the news where they've skimmed extra money from people. So that was the plot behind the VIG. And then I ended the VIG, which it ended the story, but it did not end the story for the characters. So the story in the VIG, the plot ended at the finale, but the characters remained. So I wanted to really close up that circle, number one, and I really wanted to really delve into the characters. So in Grit, for example, Frank, who's the main character, is working to redeem himself from his past behaviors. He's had a drinking problem in the past, and he's trying to stay on the straight and narrow, and he's working with this Mr. Brogan, who is the federal agent, and they are, he's trying to do good. He's trying to do good work, and the theme behind Grit is the beginning of the whole financial crisis meltdown. It's, at the beginning stages when you started seeing how these companies, these investment companies were investing money on behalf of people who didn't know how it was being invested. That really what was morally bankrupt about it. What they were doing wasn't necessarily illegal, but it was immoral in that, they weren't letting their people know how risky these investments were. So Frank was delving into that and trying to get to the bottom of that. In the meantime, Carla, who was the assassin in the first, in the VIG, now she is back and she is completely unraveling. I mean, just completely going. And I've spoken to people who work in law enforcement, and they said, this usually is the way it goes. Someone who is this, I guess, diabolical is someone who will likely just keep going until they burn out or explode, and that's precisely what Carla's going through in Grit. She is just really getting more and more unraveled and more violent as the story goes, and it of course leads to this inevitable confrontation, good and evil, bad and good. It's very dynamic. The last few chapters, or the last chapter or so, are very, very dynamic, and I really
agree.
like it a lot.
I think that when you start out with the VIG, I want to share this with our listeners. The VIG, it starts out at 9/11. And there's an ironic association between 9/11 and the falling of the towers to this parallel dimension that takes place in the financial world, in the financial industry. And then as you go through the VIG, there's kind of this conscious, subconscious phase that's going back and forth through the VIG. Like, it's happening, but I can't really believe it's happening. And we pick that up a lot. If anyone has not heard it yet, Maitland, Garfield Maitland did a dramatic reading on this and just really came across. So I encourage people, you can hear that dramatic reading through the archive shows at internationalradiotours.org. But the point I'm making is that you really drift from this very